And with that, I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
You have any questions, please?
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Describe the disconnect process
So, well,
as it relates to an individual.
so it depends on whether or not you're a residential or commercial customer. You know, typically, we will give customers, from the time you get notice that you're past due to the time we disconnect, it's about 45 days, or give or take. And so, you know, we constantly reinforce how you avoid getting disconnect. So it's not like you get a disconnect notice, you get you know, you're turned off the next day.
How are you reinforcing that?
Well, they will get, they'll get a letter, and then they will likely get multiple phone calls prior to getting disconnected. So we do everything we can to reach out to them to try to set something up in terms of assistance, you know, before we get to that deadline where we have to disconnect them.
So you know, of course, I'm focusing on the residential.
Yes, sir.
The commercial's a little bit different. It
is a little bit-
true? You can be a little bit sterner with the commercial.
Yeah, well, and Deanna, you may have, Deanna walked outside, but our commercial process, just the process we go through to contact them might be a little bit different, but we really do, you know, focus on both. I mean, we have different processes, we have different groups that reach out to different aspects of our customer base, and so, you know, but we do have specific outreach to both residential and commercial, yes, sir.
And then once someone's confronted with that, how do our customers react? Do most of them figure out a way to avoid disconnection? Is that
A good percentage of them will typically call you and make arrangements within the, you know, 2 or 3 days. So
it gets
we do get a
people's
direct
attention, yeah.
reaction from customers when they get disconnected, yes, sir.
And then the other thing I was wondering about is you don't disconnect during part of the summer, is that?
That's correct.
What's the typical period?
Usually in extreme weather months like August, for instance, you know, when it's 100 degrees consistently, we will stop our disconnection process when we're expecting the temperature to hit 100 degrees.
Okay, so we're talking about this, but we're about to hit the summer months.
That's correct.
But it's usually August?
It's usually the August month, sometimes the end of July. And, you know, basically, when we see that it's going to be 100 degrees, we'll prepare to suspend disconnects to match the weather. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Gonzalez?
So the potential in 30 days would be 172 million balance of disconnects?
The number of eligible customers that are eligible for disconnect today is around $36 million, is what's past due.
Okay, so
I mean, which is what's eligible for disconnect. The amount past due is closer to the $173 million that you mentioned.
okay. My other question is, who are our partners that we're working with to be creative?
Well, we have probably a list of over 20 partners across the community that we work with. Any social service agency that offers customers services of all kinds, whether it be housing, utility assistance, you know, water assistance. We have a full list of community organizations that we work with, including our partners at the city and county. So anybody that offers services, you know, we've got pretty good connections with, and we will get them the assistance that they need. And they'll funnel customers to us for REAP assistance when they identify somebody who's eligible.
Can you elaborate more on the federal partners or maybe county partners? When you say county, are we talking about Commissioner's Court? And are you saying partners as in the city?
It's, yes, ma'am, and it's, we've got a list we can send you of all the county
I
partners.
don't think I need a list. I was just curious. So can I ask a question to the mayor? So how are we working together? It's my understanding we're expecting federal funds that potentially, right, could be used under affordable housing, potentially could be used for utilities?
So with regard to the rescue plan, we're still waiting for the rules and regulations on that. We do expect some additional housing assistance, but that's just what Eric and I were talking about. I don't know if you want to finish your comments, because
Well, no, I was just curious about it, because one of my suggestions would be, if there's an opportunity to do so, if we could maybe leverage REAP, the program for that. And if so, is there any policy or changes that would need to be considered if it's doable through that program?
We made some we made some bylaw changes and process changes so that any money that came through on the CARES package would be easier to access for our customers. So we did do that.
Is that this separate program from the county, or is the county working with y'all? Is that two separate asks?
You want to answer that one, Eric?
It is,
Sorry, Eric, I just want to know, because if I need to go ask, I'm going to go ask. I don't want to be creative, I want to be aggressive about it.
well, I think part of this is making sure that you're targeted in the right direction.
I agree.
Number one, the REAP program, and I know Paula, the CPS, had attempted to gather towards the end of the year with both the city and the county. The city, we spent all of our Corona relief funds on time in accordance with the federal rules. So at that point, as Paula was trying to establish that meeting, we had no more funding. As the mayor mentioned, we are waiting for rules and eligibility of the American Relief Fund Act. That money may or may not, depending on the eligibility, could be utilized for that. I would think that we probably need to see where all the pieces are at on the table. REAP could be a component of that, but that would require some coordination with the county and the use of their funds.
Clarifying that.
Yes, Mayor.
No, if I could just take a step back for a minute, this whole pandemic and these numbers, this data that you shared, Rudy, which is very helpful, has reminded us all that housing is more than just your rent payment or your mortgage payment. It's a lot more than that for a lot of folks. And you can see as those numbers have been creeping up for people that the ability to keep a roof over their heads in this pandemic and the assistance we're providing to people goes beyond just, again, the rent or mortgage assistance. I was asking Eric for how much we have already, through the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, provided for utility relief, which is reflected in these numbers, and it's a little over $11 million. To date, the city's program has helped over 83,000 families avoid being, knocked out of their homes. And in doing so, also keeping the entire stream from finance to tenant whole. So they're also not getting a big bill due at the end of the day. Everybody's whole in the process. But 83,000 families is interesting because that's also almost the same number of families that are more than 30 days or more than 60 days over in their payments. So what I would suggest is we wait for the rules and regs on the American Rescue Plan, as well as additional specific housing relief that we expect from the federal government that may go above and beyond what's in the rescue plan. The other thing is we've all been reading about this $1 billion state housing relief program, of which they've maybe approved 100 or so applications. 250 applications so far. There's $1 billion in federal relief sitting at the state that is quote-unquote housing to keep people in homes. This is not the only utility in the state that's dealing with these issues, and it's also not the only type of utility. We're also facing the same issue over at SAWS. So perhaps we need to work together here locally with the county to identify the pockets of revenue that are quote-unquote housing to help make sure that people don't get a bill that's forcing them out. But we also communicate with our delegation about maybe rewriting some of the eligibility criteria on the state housing program to loosen up some of those dollars to actually be used for utility assistance. Because again, that's not just a Bexar County issue, that's happening all across the state. El Paso needs assistance as well. So we can start communicating with our folks over there immediately about that.
Okay.
I do have another comment. My other concern is, I'm a small business owner, and if you really look at who's paying their bills, it's business. And we need to be careful too. Not everybody was eligible for the PPP loan. And so small business, in my case, we're not generating $25 million a year. I mean, we're small. And I know I'm paying my bills. One is my obligation as a trustee, plus we don't want to have bad credit. So it's another thing that we need to consider, that we cannot allow still small business to carry the whole weight when a lot of us are also struggling. So just be mindful of whatever we can do, that if you look at these numbers, the business community is being impacted by where we stand. The other question I had is, can we have a report from Kathy Garcia, I believe, in the future for governmental affairs and where we're at and what is their activity at the state level? to see where we can maybe have a bigger impact or strategize a little bit more. I know some of you on the board have a better network than I do at a state level, but whatever we can do, I would appreciate that as well.
Mayor?
The only thing I'd add is I appreciate the pause and the reflection on the data. That's exactly why this will allow us to identify some new sources of revenue and also not unnecessarily raise the blood pressure of folks who've already been struggling through this entire year. So I think that is a good signal for folks that we're not rushing to this. We're going to understand the impact, the data, the financial impact as well, and we'll move forward together as a community.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I would like for our CEO to weigh in. I know you've made a lot of statements about this, but what's your current thinking on this? And of course, it's trying to balance this, what the mayor's talking about is the hardship on families and wanting to be understanding and help these families. But then the other side of it is financial stress on the company, which we as trustees have to be concerned about. What's your thinking? How are you dealing with that?
Well, it's an extremely fine balance. I think we've taken the perspective that, we've served this community for so long. These are our customers that we truly care about, and we do understand that their ability to get back to a more viable existence is really important to the strength of our whole economy. So it hasn't been with a lot of thought about helping them. And as Rudy explained, we started casework. That's not what utilities typically do. They don't do casework, but we started casework well before the pandemic. And so Deanna and Rudy have a view where I've gone out with them where they go out and try to help customers get everything from assistance with their families and counseling to food to utility assistance. So this is a really meaningful perspective for us. We think we've doubled down on our community by being helpful and trying to be patient. Not many utilities have an outbound call avenue. They really don't. We are one of the very few that have really been talking to customers and found that to be helpful. If we had not done that, I think our numbers would be even higher. But we do need to get back, sir, to your point of balancing it all and being thoughtful and taking in the information that is here. We have wanted to get more direct federal assistance, but utilities have not qualified for that to come to us directly. But we have been spending time with elected officials at the federal level and at the state level, but it just, for one reason or another, hasn't really turned in fruition. We've gotten some money from the city and the county, and to that we're very appreciative, but by far the need in our community is much bigger than this. And so I take the mayor's commentary and the city manager's commentary. We will lean into it further, but we ultimately do have to find a way to balance that out. We do need to get back to normal operations. Even before the pandemic, we worked with our customers intensely. The payment plan was one of the biggest, and still is one of the biggest programs that we have to help customers through their hard and difficult times. And that has worked. It has been a good balance. So we're going to be as thoughtful as possible. We've got to get back to a normal, but there are we don't have any other funds to get this from. And we're holding on our balance sheet again, but it is really being difficult to keep it all in balance. We're going to have to ultimately start the disconnects again. But be careful, to your point, we'll be back in the middle of summer, and then we'll have to still be thoughtful and give our customers as much grace as possible.